Recently, Apple, the company that builds its own chips, its own operating system, its own everything, wrote Google a billion-dollar check and admitted we cannot win the AI race alone. Wow. Hi, I'm Allison Hartsoe, and I work with private boards of directors on my favorite subjects, AI, customer equity, and value creation. If you're sitting on a private board and the last time you thought seriously about AI was when someone showed you ChatGPT, you're not just behind, you're operating with an outdated map. But today, I'm going to update your map by walking you through 3 AI shifts from the last few months that every board member needs to understand, starting with that Apple bombshell. Now, when Apple waves the white flag, we should all pay attention. Here's what happened. On January 12th, 2026, Apple and Google announced a multi-year partnership. Apple will pay Google roughly $1 billion a year to use Google's Gemini AI models to power the next generation of Siri and Apple Intelligence features. Now, Apple didn't just wake up one day and decide to write this check. They actually spent months evaluating their options. They tested OpenAI, they tested Anthropic, and they, of course, tried building their own models internally. And after all of that, they concluded that Google's technology provides, and I'm quoting from their joint statement, the most capable foundation for what they're trying to build. Let's think about what that actually means. This is Apple. This is a company whose entire brand is built by owning the whole stack. They design their own silicon, they build their own operating systems. Tim Cook even once said the company needs to, quote, own and control the primary technologies behind the products we build. So it's a big deal for Apple to make this choice. And yet here they are essentially saying AI models, not a primary technology, more like plumbing, infrastructure that someone else can build better. So why did Google win? One word, infrastructure. OpenAI runs on Microsoft's cloud and NVIDIA chips. Google owns the entire stack, their own data centers, their own custom AI chips called TPUs, their own models, and that vertical integration let them guarantee Apple the speed and scale that no one else could match. When you need to handle billions of queries a day with very low latency, that kind of control matters. And, of course, it resonates with Apple. Now, what does this mean for you? If Apple, with all of its resources, its talent, all of its cash, can't build competitive AI in-house, then neither should your company. The build versus buy debate is over for most businesses, and it's now, which partner do I choose? But here's the silver lining. Remember ages ago when Nike decided to become a tech company and they launched FuelBand? They laterally expanded their company into hardware for innovation and new revenue streams, but it didn't work. They shut it down 2 years later and went back to focusing on what they actually do best, sports marketing. And remember Starbucks Entertainment? Same thing. Mid-2000s, Starbucks decided that they had millions of customers walking through their door every day. So, hey, why not become an entertainment company? They launched a music label, sold CDs. They even produced a film, which I think was called Aquila and the Bee. They attempted to monetize the attention, expand laterally into adjacent categories, but it also did not work. And they shut it down after 4 years and recentered their focus on coffee. What Apple is doing here is the opposite of lateral expansion. They're doubling down on depth. They're saying we'll own the experience layer. We'll own the customer relationship, but we don't need to build every piece of the engine ourselves. And so here's my take on this. AI is moving so fast. that it might actually force companies to stop chasing the next product adjacent category and start asking better questions. So instead of what else can we bolt on, maybe they start asking, how else can we serve our customers to truly delight them, to financially expand the customer bond by making all of our lives easier instead of pushing another product upsell. Instead of every company building their own mediocre chatbot, their own mediocre AI assistant, or their own mediocre search tool, maybe we could get deeper into innovation. When companies focus on what they actually do best, that could be very good for customers. Consider this as a board director. Is the company focused on what it actually does best? And does that cause it to serve customers, generate more revenue more effectively? Second, let's talk about the first AI of AIs and what should concern your legal team. The shift I want to talk about comes from Andrej Karpathy, and if you don't know his name, you should. He was the head of AI at Tesla. He was a founding member of OpenAI, and when he builds something, people pay attention. A few weeks ago, he released something called the LLM Council. Here's how it works. You ask one question via the interface, and that question gets sent simultaneously to 4 or 5 different AI models: ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, Quinn. I believe Claude has blocked it now, but each model generates its own independent answer. Then, and here's where it gets interesting, each model is shown the other model's answers anonymously and asked to critique them. They rate them on accuracy and point out flaws in reasoning. Finally, a designated chairman AI takes all of that, the original answers and their critiques, and it synthesizes everything into one final response. I tested it and I asked a complicated legal question about new business formation, and honestly, that answer was not dramatically better than what I get from one good model. When I gave it a creative task to write compelling text for a specific audience, it did much better. Now, this just reflects the uneven development of AIs, but that's not the point. The point is, this is the beginning of AI orchestrating for AI. Layers, managing layers, and models, evaluating models. And it's only going to accelerate. What that means for boards is that getting under the hood of how AI reaches a decision has just become exponentially harder. So when your vendor says our AI handles this, that AI might be querying 3 other AIs or having them debate and synthesizing a conclusion. It's not one black box anymore. It's black boxes inside black boxes, which makes it very difficult to trace the output to a single point. Now, here's where it becomes a liability issue. California's new automated decision systems is a great example of this, and their regulations went into effect in October of 2025. They clarify something very important, which is that companies are now responsible for discriminatory employment decisions made by AI systems, even when those systems are provided by a third-party vendor. Let me say that again. Even if you outsource your hiring screening to a vendor and their AI makes a biased decision, you are on the hook. You can't outsource the liability along with the technology. Now, that's in California, and that's specific to employment law. So, okay, today this regulation is anchored in a specific area, but it sets a clear precedent that companies cannot cede responsibility to AI technology. So here's the board level question you need to be asking. Can our team explain plain language, how our AI tools reach their conclusions? If the answer is no, or worse, it's complicated, that's not a technology problem. That's a liability waiting to happen. And it's not just one AI anymore. The third shift is the sheer explosion of AI models hitting the market. 2 years ago, there were roughly 80 AI models available, and last year, about 125. But today, over 350 and climbing. Now, some trackers put the number higher, but here's what matters. These aren't just different brands with the same thing. They're specialized models. Some excel at coding and some excel at deep research. Others are generating images or voice or video. Some are optimized for quick and simple questions, and others are built for very complex, multi-step agentic tasks that unfold over hours. This is why the LLM Council exists, is because no single model is really best at everything anymore. For boards, assume there is a highly dynamic nature to AI that may even outpace the quarterly board meeting, which makes it even more important to have a special AI committee, as I talked about in a video series I produced just a little bit ago called AI in the Boardroom, the Director's Quick Start Guide. Check that out if you like. So let me tie all three of these together. The models are multiplying. AI is orchestrating other AIs. And even trillion-dollar companies are outsourcing the engine and focusing on what they uniquely own, which means the AI layer itself is commoditizing fast. The companies that win won't be the ones with the best AI anymore. They'll be the ones who know their customers deeply, closely, and personally enough to use AI in ways that their competitors can't easily copy. That's the conversation that every private board should be having right now. I'm Allison Hartsoe. Thanks for watching.